Hello, I'm Matt and welcome to Badger Workshop. I picked up this Parkinson's Perfect Vice a few years ago at a car boot sale. It's been on my to-do list ever since then to fix it. The jaws screw in and out fine, but the quick release won't work. It looks like this plate's been put on to stop it working, so I'm going to get that taken off and see what's going on. This definitely wasn't an original part, and it's just a scrap of metal that's been bolted into place. With that off, the lever now works, but it doesn't spring back into place, so clearly the spring's broken, and the previous owner, instead of replacing the spring, has just disabled the mechanism. I couldn't find any parts for this vice, but the spring looks exactly the same as the one off the record vices, so I got one of those on order, and while I waited for it, I got this one stripped down. That split pin is going to need replacing as well, so I ordered one of those. The whole thing's not in terrible condition, a bit of surface rust and a bit dirty, but with the spring replaced it should work fine. With the spring off, I can see where it's snapped and where it should have hooked over a bit of the casting. Like most things in my workshop, it's covered in sawdust, so I get most of it off and then I get a bath of hot soapy water and give it all a clean, trying to get most of the grease off it. I'm now going to replace the hot water with some evaporust, get all the bits in there and give it a soak. I leave all the bits in for several days, moving them around so they all get submerged, and it gets most of the rust off. It's all looking much better, but I'm going to do a bit more cleaning, and I'm going to get a wire wheel, a brass one, for the angle grinder. This is a really messy job, and every time I do it in the workshop I say never again, and I really should listen to myself. The garage would have been a perfect place to do this, so next time I really will do that. Now it's all looking much better, but I'm going to give it a coat with this rust converter stuff. I've used it several times before and it works great. It blackens everything up and works as a primer for paint as well. I get all the parts painted with this because it doesn't affect the operation of the vice. I leave it a few hours for it to dry and then I can get some paint on. I did some research and couldn't really find what colour these were originally painted. There seems to be lots of different colour options. So I'm just going to use what I have, and that is some flat black hammerite. I'm only going to paint the front and the jaws because I don't want the bits that slide together to have any paint on them. Before I get it all put back together, I'm going to have a look at fitting it to the vice. I'm also waiting on that spring to turn up. I want to fit it to the end of my bench, but it's going to need some extra support for it to fit onto, so I've got a bit of scrap wood that I'm going to get glued into place. But it's a bit tall, so I'm just going to mark out what needs to be removed, and then I can get it ripped down on the bandsaw. I can now get this piece glued and clamped into place, and then later on I'm going to have something to bolt the vice to. So this is not the easiest vice to fit, because you can see it's got these corner bits. So I've marked out where they are on the underside of the bench, then I'm going to have to cut some little slots to accept them. I make 4 cuts with the pull saw, and then I can use a chisel to remove the waste. Now I've got all the parts, so I'm going to get it put back together. The new spring looks very similar to the old one. Not exactly the same, but it would do the job. One great advantage of filming what you're doing is you can go back and look at how you dismantled it so you can remember which order to put it all back together again. It's really helpful doing that. Unfortunately, I never follow my own advice, as with the grinder earlier. and I thought I could remember how this all goes back together. It wasn't that complicated. But I was wrong. Looking at it, it looks like this piece should go this way up, and that's kind of how it looks on other vices I've had. And it all seemed to work okay, so I got it screwed on. I bought some new bolts, as the previous ones had been a couple of mismatched bolts and my OCD couldn't cope with that. Before I got the end on, I got a bit of lithium grease on. I'm going to go back and grease the rest of it later on. Then this can go on, the springs on, and then a couple of new bolts as well, as these ones were also mismatched. With the springs on, the new split pin can go through and get bent over. And that was it all done. So I had a little test and it didn't work. So I went back and watched the video of me taking it apart and realised this plate doesn't go that way up, it goes this way up. So feeling a little stupid, I swapped it round and that was a nice simple fix. Now it all works nicely. Happy I've got it right this time. I get plenty of lithium grease spread around and work the mechanism. Now I can get it installed. I thought it's easier to flip the bench over to do it, rather than trying to hold it above my head. It has 4 mounting holes on the underside, so I get some pilot holes drilled, and then I've got some coach screws to go in. My impact driver's not working, so I use the drill to get them in most of the way, and then I finish them off with the ratchet. I can now get the bench put back up, and surprisingly, it's much heavier now. The lettering's quite nice on the front, so I wanted to pick it out and make a feature out of it with some gold paint. I want everyone to know I've got a perfect vice. I cut down some scraps of oak and drilled some holes in to make some jaws for the vice. Then with a long screwdriver bit, I could get it through the first set of holes and get it screwed into place. I get the front jaw clamped on so it's flush with the back one, and then that gets screwed in place as well. I left these jaws proud of the bench so I could use a hand plane to trim them down flush with the top. I thought the handle looked good as bare metal, so I didn't paint it. So to stop it rusting, I'm just going to get some wax applied to it. And that's it all done. Quick release mechanism works great now, and this should give me years of service. Thanks for watching, thanks to my Patreons, and please subscribe for more videos.